Welcome then guys, and as we know with this year's installment of Call of Duty 2017, it does look like we are going back to World War II. We're definitely going to be having those boots on the ground that people are crying out for, but we are going very much back into the past. It does, like I say, look like we are going to be situated in the World War II. So if they are going to base it pretty much around the World War II kind of era, then that in regards is that they are going to probably base most of their weapons on the actual weapons that were used in that particular time period. So in this particular video, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at the type of the assault rifles that were actually used back in World War II to get a rough idea of the kind of weapons that we will be looking forward to using once this game actually does drop in November. So let's take a look at the first particular assault rifle. So the first assault rifle that we're going to be talking about is the STG-44. Now this was developed by the Germans for the Second World War. Now it was gas operated, had a tilt and bolt. It could be fired in fully auto or semi-auto. Its firing rate was 500 to 600 rounds per minute. And now with its effective firing range, if you put this into automatic, it could shoot out to 300 meters. And if you had it in semi-automatic, it would be up to 600 meters for a kill. With the magazine size on this particular gun, it was 30 rounds. Now this particular weapon was used then for after particular wars. We had it in the Korean War, Vietnam War, Iraq War, and even up to date in the Syrian Civil War as well. So next up is the Grossfuss. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the second name for this particular weapon, but once again this was made by the Germans in the Second World War. Now with the particular fire rate on this gun, it was 500 to 550 rounds per minute. Now this particular weapon was very similar to the SG-44. Now with the fire rate, it was just a little bit less than the STG, but it did actually use the exact same bullet. So with this particular gun, you could use the same magazines from the STG and use it in this particular gun as well. It did once again hold 30 rounds for its particular magazine, but with this particular gun, it had its iron sights and it was only really effective to like 300 meters. Now obviously with the STG, you could shoot out to 600 meters and get a kill, but with this one, it was pretty much fixed around about the 300 meter mark. So this particular weapon was great into those shorter to medium range combats. Next up, we have the Wintersburg SPZ. Now this is a bit of a mixed bag weapon. This is kind of like the AK-47U from Black Ops. Now this was mainly an SMG crossed with an assault rifle. Now a lot of the components for this gun were actually made up from submachine gun components, but then the actual barrel and the actual bullets and that lot are actually made up from the STG. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but this particular weapon was very effective, once again made by the Germans, and this one could only pretty much have an effective firing range of up to 400 meters. So as you can see though, even though it was an assault rifle, it was pretty much on the borderlines in between being an SMG as well, but it could only have that effective range to about 400 meters, so it made it a lot shorter than compared to the STG. But like I say, it did use the exact same barrel and the exact same bullets as the STG, so once again we had another 30 round in the magazine as well. This one come with fixed iron sights, but you could also get a ZF4 scope along with it as well. Next up, we have the TKB-408. Now, even though this particular weapon was designed by a German, it was actually used by the Soviet Union. Didn't actually come into production or wasn't actually used in World War II to the very later stages. But with this particular weapon, it made famous because this particular design then led on to the famous AK-47. Now with this particular weapon, it could be fired in semi or full automatic. It was a gas operated prototype bullpup assault rifle. Now with this, it had a fire rate of 600 rounds per minute. It also had a magazine with 30 bullets in it, but it actually used a detachable AK magazine. Next up, we have a particular weapon that is pretty much famous and well known to a lot of people, and that is the M2 Carbine. Now with this particular weapon, it was very lightweight and it was actually easy to use. This was actually used not only by the military, but it was actually after all the wars and whatnot, it's actually used by police forces all around the world. Now with this particular weapon, we have the M2. Now it was actually developed just after the M1, obviously the Carbine. Then this particular weapon then could actually be fired in semi-automatic and fully automatic. Then we also had the M3 Carbine, which was slightly different but only come with an infrared scope system as well. Now this was actually developed in 1942. It actually was finished used in 1973. Now with this particular gun, what it did have was a gas operated rotating bolt system. Now with this particular gun, it only had an effective fire range of 270 meters, so it didn't really have much of a range to this particular weapon. With the actual M2 in itself, the fire rate was 750 rounds per minute. Now with the actual magazines in itself, you can have a 15 or a 30 round detachable magazines, and it did actually come with quite a few different sights as it was actually produced over the years. Next up we have the M1944 Hyde Carbine. Now with this particular weapon, it was actually designed by a guy called Hyde himself. This is a guy that actually designed the Thompson submachine gun. Now he tried to base this kind of weapon around that side of it, and it was actually meant to be a lightweight assault rifle. Now with this particular weapon, it wasn't really mass produced, mainly due to the fact that the way that the weapon was actually built, it was very, very expensive, and it wasn't exactly as light as what the guy tried to design it to be. But it was actually designed in 1944, was used for a little bit during the Second World War, and in regards to that, with its fire rate, it had 600 to 1200 rounds per minute. So it was a very, very fast firing rate gun. With the actual magazine size, it was only 20 to 30. So with that high rate of fire, it could certainly burn through those magazines at a certain rate of knots. And with the actual iron sights in itself, it was just plain bog standard iron sights that actually come with it as well. But these are just some of the high-profile assault rifles that are actually used during World War II. Obviously, once the game drops from Sledgehammer Games, they will probably be adding a few more assault rifles into the game. Not saying that these are going to be the particular ones, but this is the kind of thing that we're going to be expecting to see. And as you can tell by the weapons that I've explained already, we've got different ones that can shoot out to different ranges. We've got different fire rates and stuff like that. So I would imagine we're going to get a nice little combination of these types of weapons being put into the game once it's actually launched in November. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see which particular weapons that they actually employ and put into the actual game in itself. I would imagine that some of the famous guns that I've mentioned will be in that particular game in some version or not. Whether they actually try and mix it up, maybe change the names here and there and whatnot else, I'm not too sure. But it is going to be very, very interesting to see, because if they do stick with the World War II theme and all the way that it was actually done during World War II, these are definitely going to be the types of weapons that we are going to be expecting when this game actually launches. But let me know, guys, in the comment section below exactly what you're thinking about these types of weapons, whether you're happy or not for these particular weapons to be coming back into Call of Duty, or whether you would much preferred maybe a little bit more futuristic guns coming our way. But anyway, guys, like I say, leave it all in the comment section below. If you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so before you jumping off. And guys, a like rating is much, much appreciated. This is going to be nearly last checking out. Catch you later.